JoEllen McCarthy, and I'm a lifelong learner and educator who believes in the power of read-alouds. I'm also the proud author of Layers of Learning, where I share my thinking around the ways we can use picture books to connect literacy and caring conversations. Together, let's connect our students to the stories, the people, and the possibilities for learning on and off the pages of their books. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Behind the Book series. I am the host, JoEllen McCarthy, and I am super excited to invite our very special guest today, author Saadia Faruqi, who has currently a new middle grade novel that is out very, very soon called Yusuf Azeem Is Not a Hero. Welcome, Saadia.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I love talking about this book because it's a book that's close to my heart. So thank you for having me on.
Oh, thank you for joining us. I'm super excited for teachers and students to get to hear from you and to learn from you behind the book, because that's what makes this so special. We get to get sneak peeks about things that maybe the readers wouldn't know. And so first off, how about if you wouldn't mind sharing a little book clip, book talk about the book with our viewers?
Sure. So Yusuf Azeem Is Not a Hero is a book. Should I hold it up? I don't know.
Sure. Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
This is the cover. I love the cover as well. It's by an amazing Pakistani artist called Hazim Asif. I'm originally from Pakistan. I'm an immigrant to the US, so it's very important for me to maintain those connections with my heritage. And I write a lot about first generation kids who are like my kids, just being from somewhere else, but also being from here. And so this is a perfect example of what kids like my kids have kind of gone through in their lives, good, bad, and ugly. And so Yusuf Azeem Is Not a Hero is about a really sweet, nerdy boy called Yusuf who is just starting middle school, and he's really into robotics. He's a very sweet kid. He loves his little sister, and he wants to participate in a regional robotics competition and make his family and his school proud. But there are a lot of things going on in the school and in his town. He lives in a small Texas town that he is kind of being very, he's scared about and uncomfortable with, because the 20th anniversary of 9/11 is coming up. And there is a white supremacist group in town that is kind of riling people up and trying to make his Muslim community feel uncomfortable and hoping to get rid of them, run them out of town. And things start getting serious. There's a lot of themes of, bullying and vandalism and violence in the book, but there's also sweetness and jokes and laughter. So it's kind of both mixed in, just how real life is, And Yusuf starts reading a journal that his uncle wrote from 2001. So his uncle, who's now an adult, went through or was a kid during the attacks. And so he's reading the journal and he's realizing that a lot of time has passed, but things haven't really changed. In fact, a lot of things have become worse in how we treat each other and how we look at certain people with suspicion just because they're different from us. And he wants to do something about it. And he realizes that none of the adults are going to speak up. No one's doing anything. And maybe it's time that he stood up and became a hero, even though he didn't want to. So, so I hope that you like it. And I hope I did a good job kind of like representing my community and people like me who have for the past 20 years not always felt the most welcomed in our own communities.
I thank you for that. I think that your sharing that experience and sharing your background is what makes this book so special. And I think that your openness and your honesty and your work as an activist, I think, is what is so powerful in having books and putting books like this in the hands of kids. You have this theme in your book about being a hero and what it means to be a hero. And I think that's a question as a teacher. I know kids, we like to pose to them what ways they can use their superpowers and being empowered to know they have gifts within themselves. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Kids actually can be better heroes than adults because we come with all this baggage. You know, I was, and I'll speak specifically to this topic, but you can, like you said, modify that about any difficulty or any challenge that one is going through. But I was in college when 9/11 happened, and I interviewed so many people for this book who were even younger than me, who were actually in middle school, because I wanted to get a feel of what Yusuf's uncle, those parts of the story, what he felt like, or kids like him felt like. So adults, like you and me, like educators, like librarians and parents, they come with this baggage of 20 years of being in this world, of those memories, of those difficulties, and being raised and growing up in that kind of environment. So sometimes we become paralyzed. Like I know, as a Muslim, I've heard a lot of negative things about me, about my kids, about my faith. But oftentimes, like the adults in the story, I feel I should just be quiet. What's the point? There's no point in fighting. You know, I would rather just present myself in a really amazing way, hoping that somebody will think, oh, well, she's pretty amazing. Maybe everything I've thought about her is wrong. So that's been my activism, but I also realized that it's not really being very heroic. But the kids who are kids today, they don't have that baggage. They are so much more courageous and strong and outspoken than I feel like adults are a lot of times. So this is a great age to stand up for yourself and stand up for other people. So I would really like to encourage adults to motivate kids that they know in their lives, who they're teaching or caring for, to look around them. And if they see injustice, if they see somebody being bullied, if they see a policy, you know, there's a lot of things in this book about government policies, about things that are happening that you feel are beyond your control. But you can write letters, you can talk to officials, you can have a protest. There's so many ways, and kids love that. So giving them those tools and reminding them, hey, these are the things that you can do, these are the options that are open to you. And really think critically about what's going on around you.
That's so well said. And I think that's what I love about the book, that how you use the power of words, and that Yusuf's uncle, in writing a journal in a really tumultuous time in his life, was a cathartic way for him to get his emotions out. And I think that's such an opportunity to share with our kids, and how we can use words and how we can use our writing to help heal, or even to celebrate the joyful moments in our lives, because writing has such a gift and an ability to do that when we express ourselves. And so,
absolutely,
you know,
well, I'm a writer. I mean, I know all about the power of writing and of using words and ideas in a way that's kind of like almost your superpower, right?
I love that. I think that for me is something that I would want kids to do, you know, just even taking some of the models in the book about keeping a notebook every day and writing about your feelings, the good, the bad, the ugly. I think that has such opportunity when kids free write, when they're writing about feelings and experiences. And so through Yusuf, we can see he's not necessarily writing, he's using words in a different way, the way he speaks up for others. And then he has this parallel which was so well done, I think, in the way that you go back and forth from the past to the present. I love that about this book. And I think it really helps kids to see and understand experiences in looking through the lens of others, and also different times, and understanding the experience and the bias that exists based on times and periods and individuals.
Yeah.
And that is so important.
I personally loved history as a kid. It was always my favorite subject. I still is. But most young people don't really like history because it's so far removed from their own experiences. And I mean, we remember probably 9/11, but kids, for them, it's ancient history, as my daughter once said. So how do you make them excited about that? That's an important thing. And trying to connect. There's I'm gonna read just like one sentence because it's clunky, so I kind of forget. Yusuf uncle says this: history informs the present, my dear nephew, and so it affects the future. And that sounds like something you would like see on a quote somewhere on Instagram, but it's so true, right? It's true, but we don't understand it even as adults. When we fight wars and we think the outcome will be different than the history of wars since we started making weapons, it's just learning about history, learning about what happens when around us, or what happened a long time ago. Those are really important things. And I hope that with books like these and other historical novels, you can make history interesting. So, that can be definitely a tool to help kids understand that we're not just learning history in school because it's a curriculum and don't care about it. I think that if you include fiction as part of your studies for kids who are learning history in whatever subject, whatever topic, whatever theme, that can make it come alive. And if it comes alive, they can imagine themselves in those situations, and then hopefully they can do better with their own lives.
That's absolutely perfect. I love that you said that, because I was thinking too that, we talk about history in schools, but story trumps history. And so we can bridge those two worlds and bring together story and history, and also have multiple ways of looking at who is telling the story, right? Because when you think about textbooks and the bias in some of the textbooks and things that have been put out into schools, I mean, we can do better and we should do better. And one way that we can do that is by sharing books like yours and giving kids an opportunity to understand experiences from a variety of perspectives.
Yeah. Absolutely. I know that my daughter, she's in middle school, and when my son was in middle school, they often would come home whenever they had sections specifically about world history or cultures where they were studying about Muslims or Islam. They would come back every day and say, the teacher was saying something that was wrong. And why would she say that? Or the book said something, or the extract we were reading was like so rude or mean. But they're kids, and they didn't want to speak out because they felt uncomfortable. And I would say, why didn't you say something? And they would look at me like I was nuts. Well, I'm not going to stand up and say something. But it hurt them. And we have to really be careful about, as educators or as other adults, how we talk about people and things, and don't always rely on textbooks, don't always rely on the curriculum. Do your own research and find out how accurate that is, because our kids are listening, and there's so many kids like my kids in our schools. There are kids from other countries, there are kids who are first generation, there are kids of color. We have to make sure that they feel welcomed in their classrooms, that they feel even if something is wrong, that they can speak up. But hopefully there shouldn't be anything wrong in what we're teaching. So maybe, don't trust 100% on all the curriculum that's out there. Still do your research and talk to others and find out before you're teaching it in class.
One thing that I noticed is a quote that I think is really important to go back to again and again. And the only way to fight bigotry and hatred is through accurate information, to your point. And human beings fear what they don't know. So the best thing is to get to know each other and to invite others in, and to invite others to share their stories and their experiences. So I thank you for all that you've done in this book and what you continue to do in Yasmin, and all the wonderful, fabulous resources that you have, which we will share with viewers. You talked so much about the writing piece and how important that is, and how we can use the book as readers. And I think the book celebrates life lessons that go beyond just the events of 9/11. Are there any last minute things that you'd want to share with us that maybe the reader doesn't know about you or about your experience, and maybe a sneak peek about what you're working on next?
Well, let's see. I learned a lot about robotics while writing this book. I had zero clue about robotics, and after I started writing, I said, am I sure I really want to put this kid in the middle of a competition? So I actually watched like hundreds of videos about robotic competitions, and talked to kids who were in robotics clubs. it is such an amazing world, and I love how bright our kids are. So, if you're not into robotics, then I would suggest like finding out a little bit more about it, just because it's such a cool topic and you can do so much. And I think the other thing that I learned a lot while I was writing this book is I did a lot of interviews of people, like I said before, and I just found so much similarity between different people's life experiences when I talk to them. And people from different backgrounds, people of different ages, when they're talking about one topic, for me, it was 9/11. I found so many things that were similar, feelings and emotions. And I love that. I think we should do that more. We should maybe pick a topic one day in class or at home and just say, well, what do you think about it? And we'll find that people who we thought we would not get along with actually are more similar to us than we realize. So that's my two takeaways from this book. What am I working on next? I have a graphic novel coming in a couple of years called Saving Sunshine. From First Second. I'm super excited about that. And I have a nonfiction biography project that's going to come next year, also from the same publisher as Yusuf Azeem HarperCollins. It's called The Wonders We Seek, 30 Amazing Muslims Who Helped Change the World. So it's like a 2 or 3 page biographies of 30 different people of all time periods who invented something or made something or discovered something or painted something that we can all be inspired by, that are kind of like my heroes. And I hope that one day they'll be your heroes as well.
I love that. Thank you so much. I'm inspired by all that you do, and I can't wait to see the new books that you're working on. And thank you for the advice to our viewers, to the students. I hope that they read, they write, they interview, and they do the research and investigation to go deeper behind the story. So thank you, Saadia, and I look forward to seeing you and hopefully connecting with you in person at an event soon.
Thank you. Thank you, JoEllen.
Literacy snapshots demonstrate ways to extend these conversations beyond the books. Here, students investigate heroes and showcased meaningful quotes in connection to an art project. Students also discuss the ways words have the power to harm or to heal. And finally, students were inspired to write poems and personal narratives that reflected everyday heroes in their lives.
Behind every face you see, there's an entire story that we do not have access to, and it's usually very complex. There's no black and white when it comes to people.